Okay. Hi, everyone. Happy Pride Month. Happy Wednesday. We are here tonight to talk about, you saw from the title, Roe v. Wade. Oh, let me put the banner up while we're at it so that you can see the title. But yes, we are talking about Roe v. Wade right now, and that is obviously a very important topic, but I know not everyone is aware of what Roe v. Wade is, how it might impact you or people that you care about, or just people in general. So we're going to dive into all the details. But before we get into all of that, my name is Sarah. I am the host of this Real Talk podcast / live stream. I've had some really awesome guests on here, including here we have today. And yeah, that's all from me. Check out Pandia Health for more resources. Apologies if you can hear the sirens. Last time we had the banging. You live in a city. That's what we're at. But quick housekeeping things. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them below. We will try to get to it during or after the live, and check us out. So before we get into it, I would love for my guests to introduce themselves. We are joined tonight by Sex Ed Bootcamp. And if you would like to give a little introduction about who you are, that would be great.
Hi, my name is Dr. Joni Frater.
I'm Esther Lastique. Nice to meet you guys.
And we're the creators of Sex Ed Bootcamp and our online school called LovingRight.co. And we travel around the country talking to college students about sex and healthy sexuality. And we happen to be a gay couple that has been together for 19 years. We love talking to our students. We love talking online. And we're very, very, very happy to be here to talk about Roe v. Wade, because this is just it's a bombshell.
Yeah.
And everybody needs to know just how big a bombshell it is and how you can help, because there are lots of ways people can help.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Very true. And I think sometimes it's easy to feel helpless in these situations. I know even with people, whether you know about the situation or you are just already an activist and you're just burnt out, I totally understand. I think we'll discuss a bunch of ways you can get involved, whether you're, kind of like lazy girl like myself, getting involved and busy with other things, but still want to do what you can, and then someone who is really dedicated. So we're going to get into all of that. But before we get into the nitty gritty, let's just talk about what Roe v. Wade is. If y'all could just give a brief definition, what it is and kind of why it is so important in the United States, that would be great.
Cool. Well, so back in the early 70s, there was an enormous push for the opportunity for women and people with uteri to be able to control our bodies, right? So in the late 60s, access to birth control was passed by the Supreme Court through the Griswold decision. And then a couple of years later, it was actually the end of 1972, becoming activated in 1973, was the Roe versus Wade decision. What that decision basically said was that if you become pregnant, you have a constitutional right to the concept of privacy, right? So we have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's the first line of the Declaration of Independence, right? Well, in the 14th Amendment, it's life, liberty, and property, actually, that are supposedly guaranteed rights for citizens of the United States. So if you are a member of this country and you are a law-abiding citizen, part of your constitutional rights include the right to make decisions about your own body that would fall under the constitutional concept of privacy, right? Two things that two people, consenting adults behind closed doors do is nobody else's business. But before 1973, that wasn't actually true, right? So we had a lot of laws on the books that once Roe versus Wade became the precedent, other laws like marriage equality, interracial marriage,
the sodomy laws,
particularly sodomy laws, right? And then that led to marriage equality later on. Those laws suddenly became questionable from a constitutional standpoint, right? So it became a conversation about, wow, if we're going to say that adults are capable of making decisions about what's best for them and their families and their bodies with the choices that they make, how you use your body, what you use it for, and who you do it with, that's all up to you. As long as you're consenting and you're an adult and everybody's on the same page, the government should have nothing to say about that. If Roe versus Wade is overturned in the current decision that is sitting on the Supreme Court's desk right now, which is what we are all led to believe, right? Because of the several weeks ago, we had the decision was leaked. So it is not official. We do not have a decision.
Abortion
right
is
now.
still legal.
That's right. So let's make that clear, right?
Yeah, that's important to note.
Depending on where you live right now, abortion is legal in 49 out of 50 states of the union. Oklahoma has passed a law that declares that abortion is not legal anymore because life begins at conception. A terrifying thought. which that will automatically kick into gear if Roe falls, right? So that's the other thing that's happening, is a lot of people are very confused about what's happening right now in this moment. Right now in this moment, depending on the state you live in, for the most part, abortion is still legal. You can still get a termination if you are under, usually for the most restrictive cases, under 6 weeks pregnant, and if up to 15 weeks, depending on the state. Some states, of course, don't have those restrictions because they are abiding by the law as it was codified by Roe.
Well, it wasn't codified.
But that's the problem, and that this is the other problem, right?
Is because they never did something called codifying this amendment, which basically makes the 14th Amendment irrefutable. But right now it's not.
Right. So if we had passed the Women's Health Protection Act, which failed in the Senate a week and a half ago, that act would have been an actual law that both houses of Congress would pass, everybody would sign, the president would sign, and all of a sudden the right to control our own bodies and make decisions about when we want to become parents would then be ours and codified into law.
So the problem is that when and if Roe falls, then it's going to revert back to the states.
Right.
Sure. And it's going to become a state by state situation. So depending on where you live, now you're going to be restricted by those state restrictions that are waiting in the wings to go into place. And there are many, many states, including Florida, where we live, that are just waiting for this to happen so they can jump all over this and make it even more difficult for everybody to access private, sensitive healthcare that's basic and normal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, taking all that in. So how do I respond to that?
History lesson.
Yeah, no, it's really helpful. I think I have some male colleagues who I was telling them about this live, and they were saying like, okay, so if we are pro people with uteri having bodily autonomy, then are we for Roe? Are we against Roe? So we would be for keeping it. Sure. Okay. Yeah. I was like, let's specify that. Yes. So for anyone who's confused, that's that. And it's really scary that we're kind of going back in time because so many people fought to have this in the first place. And now we're talking about it just going away. And it is, I believe, just under half of the states that it could severely impact.
Yes, it's actually 20. You're right. It's 26 states. 13 states have automatic trigger bans. Right. So if the day Roe falls, if it's tomorrow, 13 states will automatically become illegal and impossible to get an abortion. You have to cross state lines.
Yeah.
And in 13 additional states, there will be severe restrictions that will kick in based on the number of weeks that you're pregnant, as well as access to basic healthcare. So it's a really terrifying, I have to tell you, it's a terrifying reality for those of us who talk about sex for a living, right?
Considering that there are no exceptions for rape and incest.
Yeah. That we don't know, right? Because the decision's not official. So we still don't really know the actual details. But you're right. In the decision that was leaked, there are no exceptions.
Right. And then there are some states I know that are also, it might not go away, but it's like abortion, you can only get it at a certain number of weeks.
Yep.
And what is it, 9 to 12 weeks or something?
Actually, it's the lowest one is 6 which
weeks.
Is Texas.
6 is the lowest so far. We've got South Carolina would be 6 weeks too.
Which is really scary because
most people don't know that they're pregnant.
Most people do not know that they're pregnant at that point.
I miss my period all the time. For God's sake, I never would have known if I was pregnant.
Right. It's very true. And you can miss your period for so many reasons. We can dive into that on another live.
Really? This isn't stressful at all.
Yeah. So it's really scary. Oh, also Dr. Yan, hello, our CEO and co-founder. She just posted a website that shows the states that could be impacted or will be impacted.
Awesome. Great, thank you.
Really helpful. See if it's in your state. You'd probably know, but you might not know, and that's okay. So check it out.
You know, one of the interesting things I just want to throw out there is add to this is, if you really want to make yourself crazy and set your hair on fire, a great way to do that is compare the link that Dr. Yan just posted. Compare the status of what's going to happen to choice in your state to the report for your state on SIECUS, which is the Sexual Information and Education Council of the United States. SIECUS actually has these amazing, in-depth, at-a-glance PDFs on each state and the status of sex education in each state. There is a direct correlation between the states that are restricting access and bodily autonomy and preach abstinence only in their education format, and
Which
don't
is crazy.
crazy. And those are the same states that don't require that anything they teach about sex ed prior to college is medically accurate.
Yeah. No, it's true. I mean, I remember that. I'm from Connecticut, which is a very liberal state, and we got abstinence only. And our health teacher who taught us about all of this was the gym teacher, which, not to say, I mean, I'm a fitness person, not to say that you don't know about that stuff, but it's, you know, you need an expert in that field in order to give you the in-depth information. And there's, you know, there is a direct correlation. I mean, I remember even when I was younger, just getting into YouTube videos, watching Teen Moms, and they were all from Texas. For anyone who needs this a little bit dumbed down, you can just see it. It's there's a direct correlation. But yes, check that out. Dr. Yen just posted the link. And yeah, so getting a little bit deeper into this topic. So if you had to answer this, I know there isn't really like a specific answer to this, but why do you think that Roe v. Wade, this is even a discussion, why do we think it's being potentially overturned? Do you think, like, what do we think is the main reasoning for that?
You know, actually, it's really interesting you asked that.
My knee-jerk.
I know you don't have to answer that, but it's just, you know, I'm just very curious.
Like censored. So makes me swear.
There are still a bunch of people in this country, most of whom have penises, who think that they have to control those of us with uteri.
Sure.
And this is just another control factor.
Yeah.
And it's sad. Why are we having this conversation in 2022?
Right.
Yeah.
I thought we did this and went away. And now all of a sudden they woke up one day and the Supreme Court decided to get a hair across their supreme butt and Alito decided that, you know, we're going to worry about these potential pregnancies that might happen. And their lives are more important than the woman who just got raped and now has to carry her baby for 9 months.
Well, and I think that
where's the sense in that?
And I think that it's really important to look at the context of when this is happening, right? So we're living in a moment where after COVID, and that we're still living with COVID, right? We live in Florida. We have at least 10,000 new cases of COVID a day.
Yeah.
So nobody talks about that, right? Because if you're a Republican governor and you don't want to talk about COVID, you just stop testing. That's how it works. So Florida also just decided to take a departure from the CDC's youth health risk survey, which they've been participating in for 35 years. So if you don't want to know why kids are killing themselves, stop asking those questions, right? Yeah. So the fall of Roe is going to become a complete mental health tsunami around the country. So one of the things that frightens me is that you listen to these people who say things like Amy Coney Barrett, who shall not be, like who say things like, you know, the adoption crisis, like everybody wants to adopt. First of all, if you actually want some kind of a real hair-raising experience about a surprising place to find pro-choice people who are really, really staunch in their belief of pro-choice, just Google people who have given children up for adoption.
Yeah.
And their current stance on choice. It is women who have given up children for adoption who go through an enormous amount of emotional turmoil, who literally will look back now and decades later and say, had I known then what I know now, I probably would have chosen to terminate, because the guilt and the shame and all of the drama and the abandonment that the child goes through and the ridiculous state of the foster care system.
What foster care system?
So we have broken systems in this country, right? So here's my thought, though. At the same time that they're talking about overturning Roe, we have those same senators who are like, oh, the fetus is a life. It starts at conception. Those are the same senators who voted against paying for baby formula to be flown into this country because we were at a shortage. Right. Because the major manufacturer who was making baby formula was shut down because it was so dangerous and they were poisoning babies with the crap going on in their factory, right? So,
and the factories had a monopoly on the whole industry.
Right.
How'd that happen?
So how can you say, and those are the same people that will not pass gun control legislation.
I was going to say, accept money from the NRA.
Right. Exactly. So those people, so you can give birth to a child that you can't afford to feed.
Right.
You can be forced to give birth to that child. Then you have to raise that child. Then that kid can't even feel safe going to school.
Yeah. And you want to tell me that you're pro-life.
Right. So how do you
that's
explain?
Not positive.
That's not pro-life. You're pro-conception.
Yeah. And you're anti-vaccine.
Conception to birth. After that, you're on your own.
Yeah.
Like it's a terrifying reality, though, because really what that tells us is this whole concept, this whole conversation politically is about power.
Sure.
It's about removing power from those of us who can get up and vote. Because if you're home taking care of kids you don't want, right, and that you can barely afford to feed, you're going to make time to go out and vote. Because we already seen the gerrymandering, they're restricting voting access, cutting back on early voting. So I have found myself so often in this moment asking, what is the end game? Right? Like, why
What
do you,
purpose?
in 2022, in a developed nation, why would you want to remove women's agency over their bodies? Why?
Yeah.
We're going to go back down the list of evolved countries from up here to here.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the country we're in? I thought we were better than that.
Yeah, no, it's true. Dr. Gann also wrote a really good comment. She said that the states that have the most abortion restriction are actually the states that provide the least support for lower income families, specifically like single mothers.
Yeah.
And I mean, it doesn't make sense, but that sounds right. Yeah.
Like,
of
funny.
course.
It's the scary thing is that in these conversations, it's one of the things we always laugh and look at each other and go, stop trying to apply logic. Like it doesn't, there is no making sense of this conversation.
No,
like it doesn't, there's no rational, reasonable 21st century depiction of why removing agency from all of us. And frankly, that's the other part of this conversation. If Roe falls, this doesn't just affect people who can get pregnant.
Right.
Yeah, the ripple effect then goes into very, very bad places that we
very scary.
They say they're not going to go there, but they also said they weren't going to go against Roe. So here we are with a bunch of hypocrites who could change their minds because the conservatives have the majority on the Supreme Court, and they can choose to do basically whatever they want.
Yeah.
And then if it continues, then what's going to happen if you want fertilization treatments? What's going to happen if you have IVF and you have more than one fetus implanted and you have to make a decision to save one over the other, which happens all the time.
Or you lose one, right? Like miscarriages are very common.
Are you going to be accused of murder? I mean, these are real conversations that people have questioned and put up as, holy crap, this could happen here.
Yeah. It's one of those things where it's like, you don't think it'll happen to you, and then it could.
And then it does.
Not to scare everyone, but it's true.
It is very scary. I mean, I think back a very long time ago as an undergrad and what it was like. 1 year in my sophomore year in college, I literally was witness to or part of half of the women on my hall terminating a pregnancy.
Yeah.
And we're talking about 1987, 88. So, Roe is legal, right? But it was so scary. You still had to march across counter protesters. You still had to get driven there and kind of find the money
and spend a lot of money that you didn't have.
Yeah. But and also deal with all of the emotional and cultural upheaval that comes with making that choice, right? But in this moment, we still have the opportunity to make that choice.
Yeah.
What scares me is what happens when, to make that choice, you have to get on an airplane or drive through several states, spend several days,
have the money to do all of this.
So inevitably, this decision is going to impact people of color communities,
lower income
communities, rural communities dramatically, like earth-shattering, life-altering ways.
And we're already living in a let's not talk about sex in a real way kind of a world.
Right.
So you've got this abstinence-only education. If we taught people actually how to not get pregnant, maybe we would minimize this disaster that's about to happen. Yeah. But instead, no, they're going to take away all the education that's left in the moment that this tsunami comes down on everybody with the uterus.
Yeah. Sign up for Esther and Joni's course. I know that wasn't a shameless plug, but that was a shameless plug for me.
I'll take it.
Because real sexual health experts giving this education is actually really important and significant.
And actually, we're so upset about this whole situation that all of our courses, including our sex ed bootcamp course that we charge universities thousands of dollars to schlep us out to the middle of nowhere to perform live.
Love that.
Are in our online courses on lovingrght.co. All of our courses are free for the summer. The code is ROE. Because we are so freaked out about the potential shift of this decision. This is why I feel like this is a pivotal moment in our history. We're going to look back, our daughters and granddaughters are going to look back and go, what did you do to fight this? Where were you when they stripped you of your rights? Like, what were you doing? Watching TV?
We didn't have a choice on this one.
Yeah.
This one's going to happen with all around us, whether we like it or not. So, and that's what makes it even more important. So everybody needs to now really start to think a little differently. It's like, oh crap, if I can get pregnant, if I have the biology to get pregnant, I not only need a plan A, which is how to not get pregnant, maybe birth control, IUD, some other form.
Condoms
are exactly pills, patches, whatever you want to use. And then plan B, keep Ella and plan B around in your little house all the time, because if you have an oops situation, and you don't want to have to go through these ridiculous situations that they're going to make us go through. You can take the choice and make it happen and apply yourself to plan B and take care of business. And right now, that's the only thing, we can recommend, except, hey, if you've got a penis, think about getting a vasectomy. If you have a partner with a uteri, vasectomies are reversible. They're a lot less harmful to your body than putting chemicals in every single month. And birth control should not just fall on the person with the uterus. It's not just one person's responsibility. So let's all pony up a little bit, because this is going to be a long haul.
It's true. And Pandy Health is obviously very pro birth control, but of course there are some people that are unable to take it for various health reasons, like migraines, blood clots, certain other health conditions. And so because of that, it takes two to tango. It should be on the responsibility of both partners, and very important conversation.
I think this conversation also, it gives us a pivotal opportunity to kind of shift how we make those personal decisions, right? Like if you're going to be sexual with someone, it's not just like, okay, hey baby, let's go. It suddenly becomes a real, in-depth, oh my God, is this sexual encounter going to be worth screwing up my life plan? Screwing up my path. If I could get pregnant and I know for a fact this person I'm never going to see again, or B is not going to take responsibility to help me out, even if it just means helping me schlep to whatever state I got to go to, so I'm not pregnant anymore, right? Or C is this even something I want, from a consent standpoint, making sure that you're really all in, right? The risks now of actually expressing and celebrating your sexuality are monumental. And it's terrifying, because we, as sexologists, we truly believe that's what sexuality is for, right? It's like taste buds. It's like God's best trick, the pleasure that our bodies can give us.
And yet here we are talking about having to take birth control, which changes how you feel sexually sometimes. Besides the hormonal sides. My breast hurt so badly. I didn't want anybody touching my breast when I was on birth control. But it's a new world, and we need to have conversations about consent and the what ifs. And these are real conversations. If somebody's not going to stand by you, if you get into a hairy situation and you need somebody to have your back, and oh, by the way, withdrawal is not birth control.
Seriously.
Helping out does not stop you from getting pregnant. Please don't do that.
Or STIs.
Right? Yes, that is very important to note.
We actually have a really funny story, a really fast, funny story that will speak to this. Years and years ago, long before the threat to Roe, we had an old friend who was very, very, very pretty. And she told us this great story. And she said, so she had been a teen mom, right? And so she didn't want to be an unwed parent again. So she goes out on a date with this older gentleman.
She liked them that way.
She did. And,
fair enough.
The money was nice, right? So they're at a nice dinner, and they're having what we call the pre-sex talk. They're talking about what would happen if we decided to get intimate. And she was really open and honest. And I love these conversations, because you don't usually get that bird's eye view, right?
Right.
How somebody really approaches these conversations before you take your clothes off. So they're over dinner, and she says to him, well, I'm going to be really honest with you. I was a young mom. Didn't intend to be pregnant. And lo and behold, I got pregnant. I chose to keep my son. I'm now a single mom, and I have no intentions of doing that again.
Right.
So if we have sex and I get pregnant, I'm not having a baby. I'm telling you that right now. And his response was what she predicted, which was, oh no, I'm very conservative. I'm very pro-life. This is not going to work for me. And she was so great. She's like, great. I looked at him and I went,
okay, bye. Yeah.
Honestly, I really appreciate it. Thanks for dinner. That was fun. We are never having sex.
Yeah. Okay, bye.
Yep. So those kind of open and honest dialogues that we need to start having, because if you feel like your life is on the line, you're right. Your future, your life is on the line. The way you want your life to look is on the line.
It's not your physical life. It's your emotional life. It's the emotional life of this child that you might be bringing into the world.
If you're not ready, don't do
duress. Why would, that doesn't set a child up for the right brain chemistry to have loving hormones made. There's just so much to this that's wrong about this conversation that people just don't have a clue about. Not to mention the fact that when men are wearing condoms, they're worried about it slipping off. It wrecks half the men, I would guarantee, have a concept in the back of their head, oh my God, what happens if the condom falls off? So now they can't really enjoy their own sexuality either. So now everybody's all balled up Oh my God, I'm going to get pregnant. Oh my God, the condom might fall out.
Yeah.
How's anybody going to honestly have all the pure pleasure that you deserve to have?
Nope.
Yeah, I think like that's actually a really good question. I think like what you mentioned with having the conversation with someone, I know like in my past encounters going on dates, that is something that I bring up. And for me, it's a huge green flag. We always talk about red flags. When someone is comfortable talking about that and saying, I joke with my current partner about how I asked him what would happen if I got pregnant. And he said he would drive me to the clinic, which is, and pay for it, which I appreciate. So yes, green flag. But
Awesome.
but I've had people in the past who have not had the same reaction, similar to the person you were speaking of. But I think, it can be more enjoyable when you talk about that. And, if you are on birth control, great, still use condoms because to prevent the spread of STIs, and it never hurts to be double protected. But especially if you aren't on birth control, very important. And quick note on that, just because again, paleo health, we're all about birth control and having bodily autonomy, which we're going to talk about next. But if the pill doesn't work for you, it could be an estrogen thing. There are also 9+ types of progesterone, more coming out. And so that is also an option. If the estrogen doesn't work for you, there's the IUD with or without hormones, the ring, the patch, the shot. There's a lot. And male birth control may be around in the next 10 years. We'll see. There are studies going on. Yeah, there are studies going on, and there's a question of whether or not you'd trust a male partner to take it. I don't know, but it's great that it's a thing, that it's hopefully going to be a thing. They're in the trials right now, testing on mice, which but they're going in the human trials. I believe in, I forget, a different country, but either way, I'll take it.
Awesome.
So going a little bit more in depth on that. What can we do? I mean, other than of course using condoms, getting on birth control to preserve our bodily autonomy. We'll start specifically people with uteri or birthing bodies, and then we can go into people without uteri and what they can do as well.
Sure.
Any tips on that?
Well, so we talked about obviously having plan A and plan B, regardless of who you sleep with and what gender you identify. If you've got a uteri and you have the biology to get pregnant, please do everybody a favor. Just be prepared. There's a lot of stuff you can do personally and politically. You can join Planned Parenthood, Move On. There's some great NARAL are all pro women.
Love NARAL, yeah.
Great organizations. And when you vote, look at the down ballot votes. You have to look for people who are pro-choice. That means every little person on the ballot, the clerks, the administrators. You want to try to pick school board. You want to pick people that are going to be pro your side. So it's really important that everybody gets out and votes really carefully and knows who they're voting for.
I think it's really important too for all of us with and without uteri to start having these conversations with people in our own sphere, right? Your girlfriends, your guy friends, your queer friends, your family, even when these are uncomfortable conversations, right? Because this conversation about Roe is not about abortion. That's what everybody fails to have to really realize. This is not about terminating a pregnancy. This is about, as an adult who can vote, drink, and go to war and get blown up in the name of your country, but you're not responsible enough to decide what happens to your body in the event of an egg being fertilized. There's a real cognitive dissonance that comes with that. So I feel like and I hate to say it like this, but when Roe falls, there is going to be a lot of drama, of mental anguish around the country for those of us that just feel completely powerless, right? And feel completely stripped of not only our political power, but our personal power.
Well, you have to remember that I remember, unfortunately, all the stories of people throwing themselves down staircases, going
wire hangers,
illegal abortion clinics, illegal providers out of desperation. I don't want women to have to go through. I don't want anybody to ever have to go through that.
And we have been to some of the scariest places on the planet when it comes to talking about sex. We've been to Mississippi and Arkansas. And like I said, really effing scary places. And, when you hear young people say to you, my grandmother told me that if I get pregnant and I don't want to be pregnant, I should drink turpentine or I should douche with bleach. Like,
Yeah,
No.
don't do that.
The sheer please don't do
Please
anything
don't do
crazy.
Please don't do that. We have a whole separate live about that, what
Don't
not to put in your
consume that,
vagina.
right? That's horrible.
Don't douche
But-
with anything.
But this is what's so scary, right? Don't put anything inside you that you wouldn't like feed your dog, right? Like don't do that. So it's very scary though that this is what's going to happen is if we don't have reliable sources of medically accurate information and focusing on education, focusing on bodily autonomy and embracing how we talk about sex and sexuality in our culture, just in our everyday lives, it's incredibly important. We actually have had a really weird, trippy kind of experience moving into a community with a lot of people older than us and having conversations about these topics, specifically about Roe, to people who are parents and grandparents who are freaking out, right? Like these women who are in their 70s and 80s who are like, nobody should have to live through the shit we lived through. Nobody should have to go through a back alley and be cut open on a kitchen table. I mean, like you're like sitting there trying to have breakfast and you're like, la 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 la. I can't believe you're telling me this horror story. Yeah, these are
No,
hard
it's true.
truths. But yet, these are the same people who are like, I'm the cool grandma, right? Like I'm the one they know. You need bail money, just call me. Like those are the ones that are like, I want to have this conversation and teach me how.
And that's the other good tip is that gather your
Yeah.
people around you,
Yeah.
people that will support you.
Multi-generational people. Yeah.
Absolutely, because multi-generational people remember this conversation.
Oh,
They may not remember it fondly, or maybe they don't want to remember it because it wasn't a happy time, but this was reality.
Yeah.
And here we are facing that same reality again in a whole nother world where now we have no education and no power and no control. And we've all been under COVID and we're all depressed. And now we could just be depressed a whole lot more and nobody's going to have sex. And maybe that's the answer.
Maybe that's the answer.
Maybe we just need to stop having sex with people with penises.
Just get a vibrator.
Decisions for us.
It could happen.
Yeah, just,
Wasn't Lyssa Strata based on that?
Many African tribes have used that as a tool. Yes.
Boycott.
Boycott.
Cock block.
Cock block. Sorry.
I love that.
Fix it.
No, it's
Fix
true.
it. Until you fix it, we're not interested. There you go. I feel like the other conversation that has to be had too is that even for those of us who don't feel like this applies to us. So if you're listening to us talk tonight and you're queer, right? Or you identify as gender non-binary, orientation non-binary, 12 chances, triple my chances of getting a date on a Saturday night. Like that's awesome. But like Joni said earlier, if you have the physiology to be able to get pregnant, you need to make sure that that's not going to happen for you in the event that you don't want that. Right.
Yeah.
So
things happen to people without their choices.
Well, and here's the scary part, especially if you identify as LGBTQ. Please know that after Roe falls, they're coming for us next.
Yeah.
It could happen.
Yeah.
They like I said, they're saying no. They're saying they're not going after marriage equality.
Bullshit. Sorry. I call BS on that.
I mean, they just there's the don't say gay bill. So it's like,
well,
we live in Florida. I can tell you all about
oh,
it.
you know.
Gay. Right. So we say that all the time. But I feel like this is part of the conversation too, right? Is that we have to discuss and keep it alive. It's a conversation amongst ourselves and our friends and our families. What does bodily autonomy really mean?
Yeah.
Right. And it starts with small kids. It starts with our friends and our families who have young children who say, when we were kids, we laugh about this in a conversation around consent. When we were kids, and if an adult that came to the family friend or a member came and liked to pinch your cheeks or squeeze you or do stuff to your physical body that you didn't
Jerry,
like,
creepy Uncle Jerry,
right?
Always.
No, right? Everybody's got one of those. So that's the thing, is if we don't stand up and defend even a child's right to say, no, you can't touch me when I don't want you to.
No,
right?
you can't hug me if I'm not comfortable.
Right. COVID turned all of us into germaphobes. So we need to monopolize on that a little bit, right? And be like, look, let's use that. And what we learned in the 3 feet away, 3 to 6 feet away.
It's a benefit, yeah.
In some ways, it is a benefit because then we get to make choices.
And we have
who we want to touch.
And we've got an automatic boundary,
Right.
which they're trying to take away from all of us.
Yeah. We were talking about that before this, how it's a lot about privacy and the ability to not just speak up for your bodily autonomy, but also just your rights in general, specifically for people with uteri. And specifically, we were saying too, it's Pride Month. Also Juneteenth coming up this weekend. So specifically people of color and people in the LGBTQ plus community. It's just really scary. I mean, it really does, as you said, have a domino effect because, right, it's going to first impact this and then go down the line. And I'm thinking too about, I talk about this literally every week. I love Orange is the New Black, and I listen to a lot of prison podcasts. And like, I mean, it's going to impact that too, because there's individuals who
It already is.
Yeah, they have children and they're not able to provide for them. And then you are kind of forced into certain lives of crime, and then that happens. And it's, I mean, not in every case, but
there are actually states that are already starting to try to prosecute women for terminating pregnancies. So we have,
which is crazy.
Very scary. Yeah, it's a very scary. That's why we drink. It's a very scary moment. I think, and the other thing I would love to recommend to everyone listening, and anyone who wants to go share this with everyone they know, please, as you're having these conversations with your friends and your family, make sure everybody's registered to vote.
Yes,
that is really important. I mean, moving forward, the only way this is really going to change is if we take full control of the Senate, right? So 60 votes that are really going to preserve choice, and we need to expand the Supreme Court, because we can't have a balance like this that's going to not endanger all of the rights that most of us hold dear.
And as long as the Supreme Court has a job for life, which is the way all justices are set up, which maybe one day we can change, but right now that's not the situation. So they're going to be in place for a very long time, because a lot of them are very young.
Yeah.
And they're very, very conservative.
Mm-hmm. They're in for life. I miss RBG.
Yeah, it's RBG.
Think about how she'd be
all we
feeling
can hope
right
is that
now.
she's haunting them. That's really all we can hope for.
Well, that's very true, and I like that you mentioned that. If nothing else, get people to vote. I think for, like, at the very least, if you're feeling helpless, that's something you can do. Mm-hmm. That's something pretty much anyone can do. Yep. And if you're not sure, I'm so glad whoever is on the Pandia Health account right now, thank you for posting this, vote.org/register to vote. It's super easy. You can do your absentee there. I live in DC currently, but I'm from Connecticut, so I actually vote in Connecticut. Very easy. You send in your absentee ballot, make sure you're voting in all of the elections. And I know it seems complicated, but once you register, it's really not bad. They send you everything.
Yeah, you just make sure that you sign every single stupid place they tell you to sign, including the outside of the envelopes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that they don't have any reason to turn away your vote.
Yeah. And for those of you that are going back to college in the fall, literally the day you get there, go right up to either orientation or student affairs and tell them, I would like to register to vote. If you're registered as an absentee to your home state, that's great. But you, and many, many, many universities, you can actually vote as living on campus, so in that community. So that's also a really powerful thing to do, is to become part of a registered to vote campaign on your college campus.
And go out and join these events. There's so many events happening across the country, especially now with abortion rights being torn apart. You know what? There's marches and there's gatherings and there's ways to meet people. You can make phone calls. Yeah, you can send a check. That's an easy, lazy way to do it. But they'll take the money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It'll help pay for lawyers and other things. So
it's true.
Everybody has an opportunity to help.
Yeah.
And we hope that everybody just does another little step above what you're already doing. Mm-hmm. And we appreciate everything everybody's already doing. But now it's all hands on deck.
Amen.
It's true.
Yep.
It's true. Yeah. And I like that, having conversations, I think, in talking to people before, specifically males or people who do not have a uterus, but care about people with a uterus or are family planning, or really just anyone. And it really just should be anyone, but I think having those conversations is really great, because sometimes people just genuinely don't know what's going on. And I get it. Like, if you work in a certain field and you're not always talking about these things, or you don't have access to the news, or you have access to fake news, or certain news outlets, it's easy to not know, and everyone grows up differently. So of course you want to take that perspective into consideration, but at the same time, you can have these conversations, and I can't say every time not have it end badly, but I think you can have them pretty civilly in a lot of cases, and send people videos like this. Or there's a lot of great podcasts out there. Girls Gotta Eat just did one with Elizabeth Warren that was really great.
There's some great interviews all over the internet too, and TikTok, that especially Taraji P. Henson did a great move, talking to a lot of different stars and not so famous people about the abortions they've had, right? And their stories and why, and the trauma that comes with it, and the freedom that comes with it, right? And the power to choose. And I think that also, if you have any connections to people of influence like that, right? Big stars, having them come forward with their stories about bodily autonomy and choice are really, really important. And those can be the little things that move the needle when it comes to the percentage of the population that says this shit's not right. Like we can't keep doing this to people with uteri, right? Like I think that for those of us who identify as women in this country, particularly cisgender women, I feel like it just feels like it's too much, right?
It's
like
just such blatant discrimination.
Right.
How can we not stand up against
and
this?
we're angry all the time, right? Like, I mean, and for those of you without uteri, like just understand your women are angry all the time.
All the time. You wonder why.
Just look at them and go, baby, I just want to give you a hug because I know how hard it was just being female today. And you are guaranteed to get lucky if you say that. So, and wear a condom, I beg you.
Yeah,
so,
please. Yes.
That's pretty much it, right? I mean, it's not rocket science.
It's not that hard. It's really not.
Right.
Yeah. Also, Pandia Health, we just posted, shout out to who's ever posting these links. You are like on it. Either Dr. Yen or Claire or Megan, I appreciate you. But yeah, so Plan C pills, so that is different than Plan B. Plan B is going to be, that's literally Plan B. So Plan A is preventing pregnancy. Plan B, an accident happens, but you're within that 72-hour window. So you can either take the generic like Plan B, or if you happen to have Ella on hand, which I'd highly recommend, you can get it through Pandia Health if you already have a prescription, or just ask your doctor or your gynecologist. They can give it to you. I literally just went to the gyno and we were talking about it. They were really great about it. I'm in DC, so keep that in mind. But yes, so and then there's Plan C, because again, accidents happen, and if you're in a place where you got to know before 6 weeks, Plan C. Well, I forget when you can take that, but
that's a Dr. Yen question.
That is a Dr. Yen question. Check out plancpills.com. I'm sure they will have that answer for you. There's also shoutyourabortion.com. I've actually never seen this, but I'm sure I've seen it, but I didn't know what that was. And you can share your story about yourself or someone who's gotten an abortion and whatever their experience was, because I think it's important to note that, I again, can't speak for everyone, but no one wants to get an abortion. It is really traumatic for individuals. It is usually a decision that is really difficult to make, but I know a lot of people who, either have had an abortion or know people who've had an abortion, and in the end always feel that it was the right decision. In the long run, in one of my favorite shows, which Sex Education, there's actually a really great line where this woman had an abortion. She says, "I actually regret the kids I had more than the abortion." And it's a whole story, but it's because she wasn't able to provide for them, and it really does all go back to that domino effect and what happens then to the kids. And then lastly, wear a ribbon to show that you trust women, which is great. Check out oursilverribbon.org. Again, have not heard of that, but love to see it. These are really great resources. And again, keep up to date on sexual education, because again, it's not everywhere. So check out Esther and Joni's courses. Check out pandiahealth.com. We are definitely, a lot of our information is specific to birth control, but we also have a lot of sexual health information. We're definitely growing in that area, which is really awesome, because we need more individuals like that, and starting the conversation and not being afraid to do it, because we always need people to do that. And I think the more people start talking about it, the more others will then start to feel comfortable having these conversations.
We have to normalize this. This is normal stuff. Women get pregnant and choose to not have a baby for a billion reasons. That's a private individual decision.
Right.
No one needs to know.
No, never.
Yeah.
So maybe your part, they're not even necessarily maybe your part.
And we have to remember too that there are other issues at play here that nobody really talks about in this country. We are one of the highest rates of maternal mortality rate in a developed country. Like, we have stats that you would think we are a developing nation, not a first world country. So, and women of color and women in rural areas are particularly at much higher risk. Women of color are like 13 times more likely to die in childbirth than a white woman. It's terrifying. Like, the statistics are off the charts. And also, like, postnatal care for women of color are also statistically much higher at risk for postnatal depression, for being mistreated and misdiagnosed by doctors. So there's a whole other, like, the institutionalized racism in the medical field, like, also plays into this conversation. So I feel like there's just so many reasons why we need to just trust individuals with the rights over their own bodies to make the choices that are best for them and their lives and their futures and their families, that have nothing to do with politics or legislators or the state. You just need to keep your asses out of our bedroom and we'll keep our noses out of your nasty shit. Because you know what? This move is like, this is all about power. This is not about caring for fetuses. This is not about valuing children over women. This is about staying in power. And the only way they're not going to stay in power is if we rise up and take it back from them.
Yeah. And know that you know your body best. And I know it is easier for individuals who live in a city like Washington, D.C. To advocate for yourself. But it is really important because at the end of the day, you know your body best, and then your doctor, then your other healthcare professionals, things like that. But, I always tell my personal training clients at the end of the day, like if something doesn't feel right, I want you to tell me, because, and it goes really for everything, because that's how it is. And if you feel like your healthcare provider or whoever is not letting you express that, it's never too late to go elsewhere.
There are always city and states, health planning situations where you can go to public health providers. You can find another health provider.
For now, we have Planned Parenthood.
We have Planned Parenthood. But there are lots of places where you can go and get caring, appropriate health care that actually takes you into consideration.
And if you want to follow this conversation on the political front, as far as the legality and what's happening with Roe, I find that Ms. Magazine is my favorite resource for following, like from that, like the patriarchy perspective. And really knowing like that you're going to get the no holds barred, no BS, straight up what's happening, and few words as possible, just to set your hair on fire. Just enough.
Yeah.
But you're, on the right path of knowledge.
Yeah.
Knowledge is true.
Intelligently, right.
Knowledge is power, because some people just genuinely don't know. And again, that's okay. But it's it never hurts to ask too. Not necessarily don't ask someone why they got an abortion unless they feel comfortable telling you that. But it's okay to ask about, hey, I don't really understand this Roe v. Wade situation. Could you explain it to me? Send this to your parents. I will be showing this to my coworkers tomorrow. We said we'll unpack it. It's going to be great. And maybe not great, but subjectively.
Fun.
And absolutely. Also, again, kind of shameless plug. We did a live with Erica from United State of Women, which is another great organization. Check them out. They're doing a lot of petitioning and hosting a lot of marches for all that's going on. So check them out. But we did a live with one of their ambassadors. And if you don't believe that things are happening specifically to women of color in reproductive health, check out her story. It's crazy. And I'm really grateful that she felt comfortable sharing it. But yeah, it happens. So if you need an example of that was a couple months back. Check it out on our YouTube. But it's really sad. And again, feel free to share your story or someone else's story anonymously on the shoutyourabortion.com. So we went a little bit over time, but again, this is a really important topic, so I'm glad we did. Before we finish out, did you have any last remarks, any like closing statements you'd like to share? I know this was kind of a lot and that's a loaded question, but any last things? Again, you can always comment later if you think of something, but in the meantime, if you have anything, feel free to share. Any plugs you'd like to do?
I'm always the ray of hope. I think
that's good. We got to end on a positive.
We're looking at a dark time. You still have to have hope, because we came from a place where we had body autonomy. We can go back to a place where we have body autonomy. If we all stand up and we vote and we participate and we don't stay silent anymore, and we talk to our partners and friends and family and enlighten them as to why this is so important for us as a country, let alone as your local community. If lots of people have unplanned pregnancies, your infrastructure can't handle it. It's really, it's a problem that goes well beyond the borders of your room, your house, your bed. Yeah. This is more than just about privacy. This is about the quality of people's lives, including little babies.
Yeah.
So have faith.
Yes.
And get active.
Yes. Keep talking. Get people to vote. Yes.
Get people to vote and get people to, how do I put this delicately? Get people to give a shit. Like, I mean, honestly, that's really the bottom line, is like, we need to own this issue. Yeah. This is bigger than about getting pregnant or not.
Women used to burn their bras in the street.
Right.
In the 60s, we took off our bras and burned them in the street because we didn't want to wear bras, because those were a sign of the male hierarchy. Well, guess what?
They still are.
They still are.
True.
We can't, I don't know how else we can protest enough or march enough. Right. We need our voices and our votes.
Agreed. Yeah, that was so great. And Dr. Yan just summarized that perfectly. Get active, vote, volunteer for pro-bodily autonomy, pro-choice elected, and people running for office. Yep, beautifully said.
Absolutely. You got it.
Yeah, this was awesome. Thank you so much for joining. We'll be back again in 2 weeks with something a little bit more upbeat, TBD on what the specific topic will be, but probably something to wrap up Pride Month. So again, happier note, but it is important to have these conversations. So I really appreciate you coming on here. Check out Sex Ed Bootcamp, their courses. They're all free, which is amazing. Check out pandiahealth.com. You can check us out. We're also on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok. We're on everything. You are also on everything for the most part.
Thank you so much for hosting us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yep.
And we'll be back soon. Have a great night, everyone. Thanks for joining. Bye.
Keep up.